Thank you all for joining us today. I'm excited to have you. My name's Amy Margolis, and I'll be moderating this panel. Can we go down the line and have you introduce yourselves? Tyrese,
Yes.
let's start with you.
My name is Tyrese Williams. I am owner and CEO of TME Farms and Tendu Farms, which are 2 cultivation sites down there in Tucson, Arizona. I'm also a wholesale manager at Purple Med Wellness Center and Green Med Wellness Center.
Great. How about you, Celeste?
My name is Celeste Rodriguez. I'm a principal of Acre 41, and I've been in the industry since inception. And we're here to grow.
Go ahead.
My name is Quon Moore. I'm the marketing director for House of Jane and also the formulation specialist. I've been in the industry for about 16 years.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to talk a little bit about your experiences in the space, what advice you have for people who are entering it. As you know, we have social equity applicants who will be listening to this as part of their course. So Tyrese, let's start with you. What do you think the biggest challenge you've had opening a cultivation facility in Arizona has been, especially being a Black man here?
Me personally, it's not what you would think, the usual challenges are. I mean, as far as like finding the property, building out the property, permits, all that type of stuff. Don't get me wrong, it was very hard, but my biggest challenge was actually finding a dispensary that was willing to work with a young Black male, to be truthful. At that point in time when I got to the game, there was 132 dispensaries. I literally called 118 of them 25 times or more a piece. It was very hard to get meetings with people, and a lot of them wouldn't take me serious because I was young and I was African American when it comes down to it. But that was probably the biggest challenge, and literally I had a building, a whole entire facility that was built out, permitted, ready to go, $3 million worth of stuff, and I had to sit and wait 6 months after it was ready to go before I found someone that would partner with me.
Once you were able to find someone who partnered with you, did you feel like that trickled down into the rest of the industry, or did you find each dispensary to be its own challenge?
Each dispensary was definitely its own challenge. And I'm not gonna say all dispensaries, weren't willing to work with me. That might not have just been the best deal. There were a few that, that definitely wanted to do deals with me. It just wasn't the best deal when it came down to it. I kind of seen that they weren't for me. I'll put it like that. They weren't for the African Americans in the industry. So actually, the company that I partner with is the only Black-owned dispensary in the whole entire state.
Wow.
So out of 132 of them, only 2 of them are Black-owned.
Have either of you, Quon and then maybe Celeste, have a similar experience here?
I've been around since inception, so me and the guy that he was referring to were the only people in the first DHS meeting that was ever put on by DHS. So yes, you experience that. The MSOs, they most definitely come together. They work with who they want to work with, and they exclude who they want to exclude.
That's true.
And I would say that to make it plain and simple, Arizona has a tendency to play high school type games when it comes to
The industry.
Yeah, the industry. It's more of high school cliquey type things in the industry here than I found in other places I've been before. So so it's like you have the issues of what he ran into on top of people trying to, they hide it behind pretty much saying, oh, we only work with this group of people or that group of people. But it's always minus the minority groups of people that they intend to work with.
Well, if you were giving, since that seems to be a barrier to entry, Tyrese, if you were giving advice to one of the social equity applicants, how to overcome that in order to, I know these are retail, but how to kind of overcome that inherent bias?
To be truthful, don't give up. Just keep going. I mean, you're gonna hear 1,000 no's, but the one yes is gonna be great for you. The second thing I would say is if you are lucky enough to win a dispensary, do not sell it. Don't give it away. Hold on to it. You can create generational wealth with this. You know what I mean? Your great grandkids will be okay. Just hold on to it. You're gonna have so many major companies, billion-dollar companies, they're gonna come to you and they're gonna offer you a fraction of what it's worth. So that's probably the biggest thing, is to hold on. And also, as much time and effort that you put into opening your dispensary and get it running right, also put that into a cultivation site. You need a cultivation site. You need product. So if you don't have a cultivation site, if you don't have a kitchen or a lab and producing your own product, first and foremost, you're spending a lot more money. It costs a lot more. You're paying, fair market value instead of what it actually costs for you to grow it or produce it. And then on top of that, you need your own stuff. If not, you're always gonna have to depend on the big companies. And when they, like she was saying earlier, they dictate on what's going on. So if they don't wanna mess with you, if they wanna stall you out and hurt your company, they won't sell you product. You literally have, 4 major cultivation sites here that are huge, acres on top of acres. And, those guys can starve you out. So definitely focus on cultivation sites.
I think that's a good lead in, Celeste. What do you think the long-term benefits to communities are socially, economically, who might participate in this program?
Acquiring the license is the first thing in the community, but there's a lot of economic and social growth that will take place because one, it's in the community, so it's benefiting employment as far as for jobs for people in the community. The adjoining businesses around the community, it'll help them as well because if people are coming to frequent your store, somebody might want to get their nails done or stop and get something to drink or something like that. So it brings value to everybody around. What else it might do is it might cause people to actually come and actually invest into the community where the dispensary is at. That's something that hasn't been done. So we've been in the industry for 10 years in the medical marijuana industry, and the nonprofits that are up and operational now haven't gave back anything to any of the communities, haven't given anything really meaningful back. So to me, it most definitely, once you get it, the thing is acquiring it and keeping it. The same thing that Tyrese is saying. If you're not acquiring and keeping that license, then you're not benefiting yourself or your family. So the thing is just know your worth and your value, but most definitely bringing it to the neighborhoods that were disproportionately affected, it just brings livelihood to them, something that they could see. And then it's even better to see that, hey, people that look like me and act like me, live in the same neighborhoods like me, are the ones that are actually here running the establishments, owning the establishments, having equity in the establishments.
Will you talk a little bit about this idea of generational wealth? We heard Tyrese mention that phrase, and I'm going to ask you kind of the same question. And keeping licenses in the communities, what does that mean to you?
It means knowing your worth and your value. These licenses in Arizona, they're capped. So there's only a certain amount of licenses that are allowed to be in Arizona. So what that does, it puts a value on it that's more than what it's even worth at the end of the day. So the thing is, you have to know your value and know that these licenses are going for billions of dollars and not even millions of dollars anymore. When I first started the industry, you could get a license for about a few million. Now they're up into 20, 30 million on it. So just know with time, your value increases. It's not like a car that appreciates. That value increases. But in the same token, you have to put in hard work like you would with any other business. And that's the most important factor. You need to do your research. You need to read. You need to educate yourself. But if you put it in the hard work, you have a gold mine. Your family will not be without.
What do you think about that?
I completely agree with it. From trailing off what she said is know the business side. One of the issues that I see where people are not being able to get into the industry is because they feel that there's a certain entry point that they have to abide by. Like, oh, I have to be a bud tender or this. No, like the cannabis industry is, the industry is just like any other industry. It's business. You take business, you apply it to the same thing, and you get the results. But a lot of people think that they need to have a certain brand or a certain this or that. They have to be a grower. No, everybody's not a grower. Just like everybody does. Does anybody grow their own vegetables? No. It's a thing that certain people do, and they do it well. So one of the things, if you get a license, know the business well, and then from that point, you know at that point who to bring on your team to expand, to grow, but never sell it. It's like, would you give away a lottery ticket, a Powerball ticket, $1 million, $100 million? Would somebody came and said, "Oh, I'll give you half of the value of your ticket to give it to me now, just because you need cash right now"? Or would you wait a little bit longer, go down the road, and have true success and get paid every month, residual for the rest of your life, your kids' life, their life? That's what you want. Because if you're saying, I get this lottery ticket and I need to sell it right now, what were you doing before you got that lottery ticket? Keep that same mindset, put the business together, and then you'll win doubly in the end.
So we all know that cannabis, marijuana is a capital intensive business. And we also know that an infinitesimal amount of capital flows to underrepresented communities and underrepresented entrepreneurs. I actually want maybe each of you to answer this question, and we'll start down here. Being young, being a minority, talk a little bit about how it was to raise capital and maybe share some advice on the fundraising process.
Truthful, it's almost impossible. It's like, finding a needle in a haystack. I mean, it's literally almost impossible being young, a minority, especially from the hood or anything like that you would like to say. It's very hard to find anyone who makes, even more than $400,000 a year. I mean, only 1% of Americans, period, make more than $400,000 a year. So, with it roughly being 330 million people in this country, when it comes down to it and you do your research, there's only about 600,000 black millionaires. So where do I find a black millionaire? You know what I mean? You don't. It's very, very hard. And no bank is going to give you a loan because it's still illegal federally, so they're not going to give you a loan. That's not going to happen. So your biggest and your best thing to do is, first off, don't stop trying, keep going, and really look into, athletes and celebrities, to be truthful. I think that's a good way, especially when you're young and African American, as far as getting your funding. Luckily with me, I had a friend who played at the NFL who definitely is all about marijuana, as far as instead of being, prescribed pharmaceuticals and that type of stuff, all about the natural healing process. So luckily I had a good friend who was willing to put up most of the money to help me, and we've been cool selling ever since. But to be truthful, it's really hard. It's gonna be hard. And if you guys need any help, reach out to me. We will personally help you guys to the fullest.
That's great. Celeste, what do you think? Raising capital, it's never fun.
It's never fun.
Always hard.
It's hard, but it's doable. The thing is, you just have to know your worth. You have to make sure that you have your own legal. You have to make sure that you don't get cut out of the deal. The good and the bad about it is, once you get a license, literally, the first in 2012 when the licenses were awarded, there were people waiting outside of where the lottery was at. So you came out, you won it, and people were there. I have this check. I'll give you millions for your license. I'll give you millions for your license, where they're trying to buy your license, not even having your license for an hour. So the thing is, there's a lot of people that's going to out there where you could get the capital, but the tricky part to it is, are you getting capital where somebody actually has your best interest at heart and they want to keep this a social equity applicant? And that's what needs to be done. So to me, it's using your resources, reaching out to your parents, your grandparents, seeing what networks that are there. Stay away from the MSOs, because 9 out of 10 times, 9.9999 out of 10 times, they won't have your best interest at heart. But you just have to do research and just do your due diligence on whatever it is that you're getting. Make sure you have your own legal. Don't never use anybody else's legal on what you're doing. There's money out there, but you have to do your research and you have to do your due diligence. If you don't do that, you don't want it. Again, it's like anything. Nothing comes easy unless you really do your work on it. So just make sure you do the work on it, because it's worth it.
What do you think?
Yeah, and I would follow with her with that, saying definitely have to do your work in the sense of having a solid business plan. And that's one of the things that people don't do. They're like, oh, well, I have it all in my head. Well, if somebody's giving you millions of dollars, they don't want to sit down with you before they read through your business plan. If they got to talk to you before they read your business plan, that they're not going to put money into it, because that's the number one thing that shows them you're not involved in this. You couldn't put this on paper to tell me so I can read it, send to my lawyer, send to my other people, because that's what they're going to do. They're not even going to look through it before they send it to their lawyer and they give them an okay to look at it. So at that point, you have to have your understanding of the business, and like she said also, your own lawyer. Don't use nobody else's lawyer, because that's how a lot of people had their licenses stolen. Somebody comes in and say, oh, you know what, legal's expensive, I got a lawyer for you. Legal's not expensive. Legal is expensive, but if you can get lawyers to do pro bono work for you, never forget that. in this industry, people will do free work for you on the tendency that they'll get paid later because they know it's a cannabis industry. This is a lucrative industry. So you have to know that going in. This is like the casino industry. And the MSOs, they act like mobsters. So know who your people are and who you can do business with.
I can, as a lawyer, attest to all of those things being true. So let's stick to the capital and fundraising piece for a little bit. You talked about, actually all of you talked about knowing your value. So let's have a more kind of nuanced conversation about fundraising. So you've gone out and raised money for your project.
Oh, yes.
Will you talk a little bit about how you decided how much you were raising, how you approached that, how much you were, I'm asking you for specifics, but how you kind of conceptually approach the fundraise, willingness to give away equity, how you made those decisions, because I think fundraising is new to just about everyone unless you come from, tech.
Exactly. Well, definitely you have to do your homework. So me personally, when I started fundraising, I went and did the research. Okay, it's going to cost me this much for this property. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost me this much to build out. It's going to cost me, this much for as far as if I need product when we first start, Mm-hmm. So I had all of those wrapped up, and from that point on, it gave me an estimate on how much I really needed. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you need a couple extras because anything happens, mm-hmm. especially when you're doing construction. That's a very tricky part, when you're building out, especially general contractors. And let me tell you, the first syllable of contractor is con man. So, you be very careful with contractors. But there's always something that pops up. And so definitely do your research and figure out exactly what is going to cost you to open up, whether it's your dispensary, a cultivation site, a production facility, whatever it is. That's where you're going to get your estimate of how much you need. And then from that point on, there is money out there, like Celeste was saying mm-hmm. on the last question. There is money, and it's your choice whether you would, you want to take it from anybody. But me personally, why I said it was almost impossible for me is because I am keeping my equity and the money that I borrow or anything or money that I raise all from Black people. I'm just truthfully saying it. I don't really dip out. I keep it all in the house mm-hmm. because I'm building something for not only myself and only my family, but for all young Black African Americans across the country. Mm-hmm. Right now we live in a country right now where 75% of people that look like me get in trouble for it, but only 4.3% actually profit from it legally. So. Mm-hmm. There's 4.3% of marijuana dispensary owners, period, across the whole entire nation. We make up 1.2% of that 4.3% in Tucson, Arizona. So that's what's big about me. Of course, it's really, when you're in this game, it's not hard to find the money. The money is there, they'll come to you. But it's up to you on who you want to take it from. But as far as the fundraising part, definitely figure out how much you need and don't take more than what you need.
That's great advice. Do either of you, oftentimes in the cannabis, in the marijuana industry, we think about that capital is so constrained. And so oftentimes if I'm talking to people, I'll say, you cannot vet your investors, but be open-minded. Mm-hmm. And you were just talking about having almost like a thesis for who your investor is instead of the investor having a thesis for how they're deploying their capital. I mean, did either of you, as you think about fundraising or advise people on fundraising, do you kind of share that same sentiment that, it's a good idea to raise within the community, or like, how would you approach that piece?
So to me, it's knowing your worth, and that's what it's going back to. He knows his worth. So when you know your worth, you dictate on how you want to run the show. So you dictate it whether you want to get it from big companies, small companies, multiple people, one person, because that all makes a big difference on how you get with your crowdfunding. But to me, the important parts of it is making sure your business plan is accurate. Make sure that you have a buffer, as he said. Make sure that all money is not good money, and then make sure that you just use your head. Use your head when you're going to do it. And then move forward and stick to what you're going to say. Make your word be something. And I think that's the biggest problem. As long as you have your business plan in place, you leave room for error, but not as much room for error. Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that statement? Not all money is good money.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I have people that call me or refer to me on an everyday basis that want to put money into the cannabis industry. And it's just like, I can give you an example. So some people say, oh, we want a silent investor. And that's pretty much the biggest setup ever. If somebody comes to you and says, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a silent investor in your company, if they intro with that, they are not gonna be a silent investor. They're gonna be like in your company, running your company, like calling you every day, hey, where's my money at? You do not want that type of person. And you do not want somebody that is loaning you their last dollars. Because if that's the case, if they're loaning you your last millions of dollars, whatever, they're gonna pretty much work at your dispensary because they're gonna be there every day harassing you. So that's what I go back to, not all money is good money. It's just like, do your research, you know. There's gonna be people throwing money at you left and right. Never take the first deal. Why? Because the first deal is always something somebody's just saying, oh, I hope they take this. Because if you take it, then they got you. When you set a price or set whatever you're trying to do, make sure you're the one leading the conversation and leading what's being done. If you remember, you're the one with the power. You have the license. They're trying to get something from you. You always keep that thought in your head, and you'll know how to play the game. Because it does get to be a game, and you have to learn how to navigate it and enjoy it. Because if you don't, it'll drive you crazy.
How important, and I guess this is a question for everybody, I'll start down at the end. How important do you think professional services are? Celeste mentioned, making sure that you vet things through your counsel, but sort of like holistically, accountants, lawyers, professional contractors, like how important is it to surround yourself with a professional team or consume professional services?
It's definitely important. I mean, you definitely need professionals in certain areas. I mean, you can't get anybody off the street to be, like I said, your contractor or anything like that. You definitely need your professionals. At the same time, when you're around these professionals, you make sure you're there on site and you learn everything that you can learn about it. That's one thing that I pride myself on, is that, I was the realtor for when I found my place. I was the general contractor for my place, and not literally on paper, but I was there every single day. I was there more than the general contractor. I actually seen how the walls was put up. I seen how ACs were put on the roof. I seen how everything was hooked up on a daily basis. And I mean, even when it comes to the dispensary side, I mean, I am not, I don't run the every day-to-day basis of the dispensary, but if I need to go hop on the register, I can hop on the register. If I need to go in the back and, trim, I can trim. I can do all of these things, but you definitely need professionals. So once you actually learn it yourself, you're gonna realize you can't do it all by yourself. And you're gonna have to hire some people in those positions. And your best bet is to, find someone that you know for sure is going to put in the hard work. Even if they don't know all of the knowledge right then and there, find somebody who's going to put in hard work and is going to look at your company and your money as if it's their own. And when you find somebody like that, you can't lose.
What do you think? Professional services, accounting, lawyers, contractors?
Make sure you're not the smartest person amongst your team with your professional service group, because if you are, you have an issue. To me, make sure they're all licensed, accredited. Again, doing your research, doing your due diligence. Look at, if it's a lawyer, look and make sure they don't have any bar complaints against them. If it's when a person that's doing your accountant, make sure they don't have any complaints against them. Make sure you do your research on them to make sure you're dealing with people that are going to do diligent work. Another thing that I do is I ask people how they feel about the industry that we're in as far as marijuana. That's a huge thing as well. Because the thing is, you might have some people, when I originally got into the industry, people frowned upon it. I was called a drug dealer. Couldn't get billboards, couldn't do any of that. Now we see where it's progress, where all that's changed. But make sure that the people that you're bringing in, that they believe in what you're doing. And if not necessarily even believe in it, but they don't frown upon it. Because you don't want people working with you that don't believe in what's taking place, because they put you on a back burner. Something that I do, look at other people and see if they've been in the cannabis industry before, where they have more experience in the industry. That's always a good starting point, because if they have industry experience, then they'll be able to pass that experience on to you, know the ins and outs, know what's going to save you. So make sure you just vet the people, make sure you're doing your due diligence, making sure that they're good people. And free isn't always good. So that's one thing that I would say to look out for. You know, I know everybody has family members and the homie hookups and different things like that, but sometimes that's not what you want to do. You want to be able to differentiate your personal and your business.
I would follow that up and say, yes, services are not friends and family. Do not mix those two. I would even go to the point of say, even if one of your friends and family has the company in which you need that service, don't use them in the beginning because you have that personal relationship with them. You need somebody that you're gonna speak to how you need to get the business done, and they're gonna come to you how they wanna follow up and get things handled. Because if it's a friends and family, there's too much of a lackadaisical thing, you know, and it's not to put down anybody that has these businesses that have friends and family, but I've seen it before. And when you're in this industry, this is how it works. So you need somebody to come in and say, oh, I need to account it. All right, cool, run it. Handle it, get it done. But I'm saying, once you start with this, when you grow, then you can bring your family people in, because you already have the things established. You have your SOPs, you have things that are working. Don't start with the family, do the family after you're established, because that's what will burn your company down, and then it'll cause fights and rifts. You know, and people have to understand it's a business. It's not a friendship. It's not none of that. It's business.
And to go off of him, just he
Yeah,
brought up the
please.
accountant. Why I said to look to see. So in the accountant, you know, going to get a CPA, there's a 280E that a lot of people don't know about as far as how that works with the cannabis industry. So you want to make sure whoever's doing your work does their due diligence, where if they don't know it, they know how to find a resource to find out that information and make sure it gets done right.
So 280E is the federal tax provision that says you cannot deduct your regular business expenses, and I'm sure you've come across accountants who have no idea what that is or how to interact with that.
That's why I fed off of when he had brought that up, you know, because that's a very important.
So let me ask you all a question. Let's say you were picked in this next lottery. You're one of the 26, not that you guys are applying, but just pretend. You're one of the 26 licensees. What is the first thing you would do?
First thing that I would do,
As a new business, new marijuana establishment, permit holder.
well, since I have the outline and I kind of, you know, I am a professional in this field, the first thing I'm doing is looking for property. Where am I going to place this at? You know, where's the best place to place this at? Where has the most foot traffic? Where's the most easily accessible from the highway spot that I can put this at? That's the first thing I'm looking at, is property, to figure out where to place this at. After that, I would be looking to raise funds. You know, once I actually find the building, raise funds to be able to open this place. After that, I would, well, simultaneously, I will be filling it up with people that I know that's in the industry, like I said, professionals that I know that does great work and has my best interests at heart. Those are the type of people that I'm already, you know, ready to pull in, ready to get in. So like I said, I would definitely start with where to place it at. You don't want to get a dispensary and you be in the middle of nowhere in a city that has 2,000 people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to be there. So you definitely, location is probably the most important thing to me, and that's where I would start.
What about you?
I'm taking claiming it, bringing it right to the neighborhood. So I was brought up in South Phoenix, so I'd most definitely want a dispensary in South Phoenix. So I'd be looking for property in that area, bringing in people from the area as far as teaching them, educating them, let them know what it's going to be so they can be prepared for what will take place with the dispensary and just growing from right there. But I would start with bringing it to most definitely the south side from where I was brought up at, a disproportionately affected neighborhood that needs a social equity license there and needs to benefit from what's taken place over the years, because it's not something that happened over a year, the last 5 years, 10 years. This is something that's been taking place for decades. So I'm most definitely taking it back to the neighborhood and employing people from the neighborhood and doing what I need to do.
Definitely agree with that, especially employing people from the neighborhood, because we're in the industry right now where in Arizona there's roughly 21,000 people that work in the marijuana industry. Maybe 1% of that is actual people that look like us. So 200 people, and that's throughout the entire state out of 21,000. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one, you know, hiring people that look like us.
What would you do? You get the license. First thing you do, you get the license.
To piggyback off what he said is the key thing is location. Because one of the things a lot of people may not understand first starting out in this is every building is not a building that could be qualified to put a dispensary cultivation in. There's a lot of what are they? Zoning laws that are set up that only apply to the marijuana industry. So that's going to be probably one of your longest processes, in lieu with probably lining up an investor. But I mean, an investor, I mean, you can find one of those easier than you're going to find a building. And I can tell you that, the whole honest truth, because there's companies to this day that are searching for buildings. And I know some people that they drove the entire state of Arizona touring buildings trying to find the perfect one. And if it's not been bought by now, it's probably because it has some crazy price tag or the owner, you know, certain issues or whatever. But yeah.
Or too many variances.
Yeah, too many variants.
Don't let a variance scare you from picking a location if it's minimal variances.
Because sometimes, because here's the instance to back that, follow that up. A variance is, say, if it's too close to a school or too close to a park or something like that. Bless you. But if you know, like, say it's like a daycare or something, but like if it's 500 feet or so, all you have to do is go talk to those people, write a letter. You know, professionalism is key in this business. And people forget the fact that just because it's marijuana, you know, reefer madness, all of that, throw that out the window. This is a professional business.
That's highly regulated.
Exactly. And then to go with that, marijuana industry is more regulated than your vitamins that you take on a regular basis every day. And you read those labels. We can't even put those labels in the cannabis industry because we're held to a higher standard, I would have to say. And yeah.
So you talked about hiring people from the community. Let's talk about from the top down. So you are awarded your license and now you need to build a team. How would you each approach that? And how did you approach that? And how would you approach that as somebody who's going to be new to this space?
To be truthful, it came over time. I mean, now, yes, I have a team and I could fill it up right now without a question. But starting from the beginning, it was a process. I mean, I did everything personally. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got my help on the way up. Certain people jumped in and helped me, but I did a lot of everything.
Yeah.
Until, you know, I bumped into the right people and I realized, okay, oh, you'll be a great manager. You know what I mean? You'll be a great cultivator. You'll be a great trimmer, this, that, and that, you know. So it just took time and moving around the industry before you're actually gonna find people that's gonna be with you for years. To be truthful, a lot in this industry, they're not gonna tell you, you're gonna end up firing a lot of people. It's gonna happen. I mean, I guess that's within any business. It's gonna take you a while before you find people that's gonna be with you for years, forever. The best thing, like they say, to go back to the professionalism, the professions, definitely find you somebody that's professional, that, you know, that at least knows exactly what they're doing, and it's gonna take time to realize if these people are good fits for your company. So like I said, it took me 3 years of moving around this state and meeting people before I actually got a team that is for me and I'm for them, you know. So that took 3 years. It's not an easy process. And you know, go back on what Quon's saying, definitely try your best not to integrate your family in the beginning. That's the best thing I can say, because sometimes family will take you for granted, you know, and sometimes family will feel more entitled than what they actually are. And so, you know, like I say, stay professional in the beginning and just take your time, and in the next few years, you'll find your team that's gonna be with you forever.
I would say look for skill sets. So if you're looking for somebody that's a manager, look for somebody that's had previous managerial skills. Of course, it wouldn't be in the marijuana industry, because not that many people are really in the marijuana industry. But look for like skills for the positions you're trying to fill. One thing I do is look for passion. Look at the passion in the people, because if they have the passion for what you believe in, passion in changing this patient's life for the better, then you could build them, you could help educate them. I'm not one that will not hire somebody because they don't know about the marijuana industry, but I will not hire somebody if you don't have the passion for the marijuana industry. Another thing is, just like you do with any other job description, look for somebody with integrity. Look for somebody that's dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Looking for somebody that wants to learn. Look for somebody that's want to grow. So those are all things that you need to look on in any hire that you do with anybody. And professionalism. I mean, somebody that wants to be there, somebody that's responsible, somebody that is integrity driven is the most important part, especially with this being such a highly regulated industry. You don't want to bring anybody then that's going to be a liability.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off or anything, but you know, again, when it comes to the minorities, it's 200 of us in this industry in the state of Arizona. You're not going to find a lot of, you know, well-versed professionals in this industry that's looks like us. It's not a lot of them, period. And the ones that are here, they're already, you know, in the industry. They already have a job. So that's why I say it's going to take some time before you find someone. It really is. You're going to vet through a lot of people just because it's not a lot of us in this industry. It's really not.
What do you think, building a team?
Yeah, definitely building a team would have to come from networking. I mean, you have to get out there and meet people because you don't want your core team of people to be somebody you meet off the internet. You need to know, look in their eyes, know, okay, I can let this person handle my finances. I can let this person handle my development or whatever. If you can't dedicate that time to go meet these people in person and make these relationships, then you're never gonna have a core team. So, but and also to further that point, the person that says I love to smoke weed is not your person you want to hire. That's your bud tender. That is not your financial advisor. That is not your business development person. It's great if they love it, but make sure they have that professional background and strong side before they let that come across.
And it starts with the interview. If they don't come to the interview where they're professionally dressed like they would with any other job interview they go for, that should be a red flag. So just pay attention to detail, because you most definitely have to pay attention to every detail in this industry.
So, you know, we talked a lot about, or we have all talked about the situation with MSOs and kind of the sort of holding on to the license. I mean, if you were talking to a social equity applicant or somebody who won, you know, what would you tell them? And I think you've said it already, but I think it's worth going around the room and saying it. You know, do you feel like people, in order to succeed in this space, are going to need to partner with an existing
No,
owner?
not at all. No, not at all, not one bit. I mean, to be truthful, if you just want to be lazy and sit on the couch, I guess that's the best way for you to do is to sign with an MSO and let them do all of the work. And over time, you know, they'll swindle you completely out the business. But no, you definitely 100% don't need these big companies to be great in this industry. You don't need them. Only thing that you need is dedication, hard work, and motivation. You know, and with those things, and like I said, it's going to take time. It's not going to be something easy. You're not going to win this license and then all of a sudden in 6 months you're making millions of dollars.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen. Let me tell you that right now. It's not going to happen. No. But years down the road, you will be. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is don't think for yourself, think for your great-great-grandchildren. You know, you have to leave them something. Not just for yourself, not just for your kids, but your great-great-grandkids. And then your kids will worry about their great-great-grandkids, and it'll just keep going. Generational wealth. If you give it away to these major companies, it's gonna be over with, because these same major companies, only thing they're doing is partnering up, and when it goes legal federally, and you have Marlboro companies, and you have, you know, pharmaceutical companies, and you have Amazon that comes in here, and they're gonna start buying these places for billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yep.
You know, you would much rather get, you know, a lot more money from having your own than a little piece of change of a stock that, you know, you're praying that they do right with.
What do you guys think?
If you acquire your license, know your worth, hold on to your license. Don't let it go. Because if it was the other way around, the MSOs wouldn't let it go. Do you have to team up with the MSO? No.
Not at all.
Not at all. You could do it with your own hard work, but you have to make sure that you stick to it. You have your business plan, you follow up, and you make it your baby that you nourish and grow. But the MSOs at the end of the day, and I'm speaking on all of them, they'll end up taking you out of it. If it's not in the first year, it'll be sometime shortly after that. But I mean, you'll be excluded from it. You will have no generational wealth. They'll keep building. And that's what everybody's doing right now at this point in time. Like Tyrese was saying, they're building a portfolio. Everybody knows once it goes federally legal, You can't hang with the Fortune 500 companies that are going to be out here. They're billion-dollar companies that are sitting on property, sitting on land that they could sit on for years, acres, because they have the liquid assets. So no, you don't. Know your worth. Hold on to your license. Pray on it. Go speak with somebody else when it does come down to it, and then just know the value. Because I mean, there's Indeed advertisements that are in there right now, $60,000 for you being a dispensary license owner. A dispensary license owner at MSO, they would laugh at you. They would be felt so disrespected for even offering something like that, but that's what's being offered. So the thing is, think about what's taking place for the future. Don't think about right now. And then think about whatever money that you're getting, there's a luxury tax that you're going to pay on that, which is 40%. So that's something that you're probably not thinking of neither. So off top, if you think that you're becoming a millionaire because they give you $1 million, off top with your taxes, you're $500,000. So most definitely take your time, know your worth, know your value, and hold on to that license. There's no way for you to get rid of it. And let's say if you do choose to get rid of it, make sure that, let's say if you have to get rid of it, think about getting rid of it to another social equity applicant. I mean, one of the things that, you know, the transferability is the big part that you have to make sure that you don't transfer it. Keep it in your name. Keep it so you can have generational wealth for you, and then you're leading the way for others.
What do you think, Quon? Do it by yourself?
Oh, I mean, you definitely want to do it by yourself outside of an MSO. But I would have to follow up and say one thing of knowing your worth. I would have to say know who you are, because don't bite off more than you can chew. You know, if you literally are sitting on the couch not doing nothing, you know, just chilling, and you get one of these licenses, is it in you to say, oh yeah, I can do all this hard work out of nowhere? If you're not that person, connect with people and partner and make a deal to where it still benefits you in the long run, no matter what it is. No matter if you get 10% forever royalties, never sell 100% of the license, no matter what it is. I'm gonna say that again, never sell 100%. Always make sure you are in the fine print, hanging on, because at the end of the day, if you do that, and this company that you sell it to builds a big dispensary, whatever, and they sell it to one of these big companies that come down, some of these companies are evaluated at over $200 billion. So think about that. Think about 1% of $200 billion if you want to go that route, or you want to be the ones in the game getting a bigger percentage of that. Because, I mean, yeah, if you want to sell out to a big company or not, because I mean, they're going to come buying. They're going to come to buy, and the numbers are already staggering. I mean, I've seen dispensaries sell for this week for $584 million. So it's like, and those are little numbers. Philip Morris is going to come in and say, "Oh, we'll give you $100 billion. We just need you to go away." And do you think you're going to turn that deal down? No, because what you could do is take that money and go do it 10 times over again. You know. So think about it, and always protect your eye. And always protect your intellectual property. If you have some knowledge about something, that's you. Don't sell it. Because if you sell your intellectual property, you pretty much sold yourself for nothing. That's the last thing for me.
So let's talk about a flip side. So we're having this conversation, I think, very much like it's keep or sell. So there are going to be situations where people are going to partner with other folks, and you know, in my line of work, I've seen every permutation of predatory deal structure, even from companies that have cool branding or are popular and, you know, people think are like awesome. You know, automatic roll-ups and dedicated shelf space and, you know, market value, you know, fair market value determinations that are non-contradictable, just to name a few things we might have seen. So, you know, I think when you're looking for a partner, let's say you do need, you know, we talked about partnering with folks and finding people and kind of knowing who you are. Where do you think, where would you go to meet, you know, quality partners, quality team members? What would you look for in deal structures? Like, you know, everyone needs help sometimes, and you know, everybody isn't a CFO and a CEO and a COO. Maybe Tyrese is all of those things, but you know, everybody. So where would you go to find those people, and how do you make sure that you're not being taken advantage of?
Where to go to find those people? Like I said in the beginning, it's very hard. It's not a lot of people again, of color that's out there that has those type of funds to help you like that. But don't get me wrong, if you're a license holder, you have a license, they're gonna come to you. You don't have to go anywhere. All of a sudden, your phone's gonna start ringing. You're gonna start getting emails out like crazy. Everybody wants a meeting with you. Every company is gonna reach out to you. So that's gonna come. Your biggest bet is to find a very, very good lawyer, and that's gonna be the biggest thing as far as who has the most. I like to put it like this, and me and Celeste was actually talking not too long ago about this, is who has the least amounts of paper in the contract.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to mess with a company that's sending you a 150-page contract. You know what I mean? That's not what you want, because I'm telling you for sure, they're going to screw you over 100%. So again, it's going to, like I said, as far as finding someone that is a minority, that may be a challenge, but as far as the money coming to you or a partner, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to reach out to try to partner to you. And it's just your choice. My biggest thing was the guy that I partnered with. It wasn't because he was, African American. It was really because he was a down, genuine guy, and I seen him literally, work his butt off. And not only that, he put his whole entire family in the industry. His daughter runs the dispensaries. His son is the master grower. He runs the whole thing. His wife runs the accounting part. It's a whole family affair. And when I seen that, that was the thing that just, it's like, yeah, I gotta be with you. I definitely want to partner with you. So, like again, they're gonna come to you. It's kind of up to you. You have to vet them out.
What do you guys think? How do you find a partner? Because you're gonna need.
It's hard to find a partner, most definitely. I'm finding a good partner. Like how Tyreese said, a good thing is always to start off with a lawyer, because what's gonna happen is, once these 26 licenses get awarded, the groups the first thing they're gonna need is legal. So they're gonna start hitting counsel. Hey, I'm interested in investing in a dispensary, looking at investing in a dispensary. With that in mind, and make sure if you are going to a lawyer, that lawyer is actually representing you as you being their client, and they're not coming to you as representing their client, because they'll have their best interest at heart. But to me, you can start off looking there. Go to these different community events that they have around, as far as the different groups that are doing different things. Now, I'm not going to say going to these groups you're going to find all good people. They're good and bad in everything that you do. You got to seek out the good people. Again, you got to do your own vetting. You got to do your own due diligence. These are all things that we keep telling you, because we can't make those decisions for you guys. There is work that you guys have to put in, and a lot of hard work that you guys have to put in. Another thing is, you probably think this is a little bit different. Go to your churches. Ask your churches, hey, this is what I'm getting into. This is a business. I'm sure they have heavy tithers. They have different business connections that might be interested in it. Another thing is speaking with the elderly in your community, reaching out to your community, speaking to the leaders in your community to see if they could point you someplace in the right direction. But use as much of your resources as you can, and think outside of the box. Don't think of just your immediate. Think outside of the box.
So I would say definitely do your networking, but there's a group. It's a marijuana incubator. It's called ArcView, and basically it's angel investors for the cannabis industry. And basically it's a really good program, because they vet all of the investors prior to them coming to put money into it. So that's a huge one that you could probably people can look into becoming a part of, because that I would have to stand behind their process and say you will find some good people there. And not, just like she said, not all of them are, some of them get through, but you want to vet your investor. Even if somebody tells you, oh man, this is a great investor, I did the work, you need to do the work. And what is your due diligence? Looking in their background, looking at everything. Like, let's keep it simple. They look at everything. Like, if you can't find them on Google, search their name, search whatever, spend the time. Because if you're not gonna spend the time, then the ride you get taken for when you don't spend that time, you're gonna be kicking yourself.
You asked for it.
Yeah.
And that's what goes back to having a good lawyer. A good lawyer is gonna do all of that for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could contest to that. A good lawyer is gonna do that for you.
I do most of my research on Google myself. Well, and I think that that's a really good point that you're making, which is, the investor, if they're experienced is going to be vetting you. So that should go in the reverse, which is that you should be making sure that you are vetting that investor as well. And one of the things we say is to go use the Google and look for lawsuits, look for other breakups. There's lots of dirtbags who want to invest in this space who are also fighting a lawsuit across the country for having screwed somebody over. So I think that's really a great piece of advice, which is to vet that. And I think each of you have said that, and I think it's worth repeating. So, we had some more technical pieces of this conversation. One of the questions that we discussed is, how does it feel to work in an industry where you don't see other people who look like you?
3 words, disappointing, sad, and lonely. There isn't many of us. And like I said before earlier in the interview, there's 21,000 people who work in this industry just in this state. And literally it's only 1% of people that look like us. So, and really to be truthful, there's really no one who looks like me that's in power. So in the last 2 years, I've sold roughly 16,000 pounds throughout Arizona through dispensaries. I've never sold to another person that looks like me. I've never sold to a minority, period, black or brown or anything. And not just talking about like an owner or someone who, is actually has the cash in that company, but I've never even had a person that looks like me or a minority, period, even take in the marijuana when I come to drop it off, So I don't see anyone. I feel like, when I go to all these other dispensaries, it's hard for me to be myself. It really is. It's really lonely here. And not just in this state, but across the country. Like what you see right here, we're 3 unicorns. And I'm sorry to say it like that, but it's the truth. We're literally unicorns in this industry, 81% of dispensaries that are owned across the nation is all by white people, point blank period, And again, we only make up 4.3% of those owners. 1.2% of that is here in Arizona. So, it's really disappointing. And I'm hoping that you guys, whoever wins these licenses, hold on to it and hire as many minorities as you possibly can, because it's a sad industry. It's hard for us, I should say,
I would say it's expected. The only reason I say it's expected, just the world that we live in, we're divisive. It's been like this for time. That's why I said this isn't anything that's taken place over the last 10 years. This is something that's been taking place for generations. It's a slap in the face, it's pitiful, and it's uncalled for. So it's most definitely time for a change. Like I said, when I went to the first one, being a woman in the industry, it's not a lot of us women in here, and people of color. And when I mean people of color, when we're talking about people of color, we're just not talking about black people. I'm talking about black and brown. That's not existing in the industry. So let's hope for better days, and let's make a change. At least if not any place else, let's make a change here in Arizona.
Yeah, like what he said, pretty much. But it for me, I have to say, follow up that by saying the level of where you're at in the industry. It's like, I don't want to see a 100,000 minority bud tenders. I want to see the owners. I want to see the directors. I want to see people at my level. And it's like, for me, it's like every level that I've been at in the industry, whether it was the designer and editor for the magazine, I've been the only minority in the building. Not just in that department. I'm talking about in the actual building. And these companies still exist to this day, and they still have that same type of culture, because and it's just crazy. It's like, oh wow, it's like, so it's really like this, and it's like, oh yeah, it is, and it's like that in the cannabis industry, you'll find people don't have to play niceties much, so they'll tell you some stuff to your face and have you looking like, did you really just say that? Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah. And you can't get mad about it. Just make sure you have something in your back pocket, meaning a contract or some lawyer, that you can trump whatever they said to you. And that's how you got to play the game.
I agree with you on that. I've literally been told by a dispensary owner, I will never say his name or his company, but black people don't deserve to be in this industry. I've literally been told that to my face. It's crazy. Like I said, selling 16,000 pounds just in the last 2 years, I've never even called the industry and talked to a minority manager. I mean, I've never, I mean, I've sold to, I can't even count how many dispensaries I've sold product to, and I have never bumped into anyone that looks like me.
Do you all think that these licenses are the first step in kind of repairing the damage done to communities, the war on drugs? I mean, it seems like this is one of those kind of first steps, with maybe the caveat that people retain those licenses who get them. How else are you able to kind of interact with the community? Is it by hiring people from the community, like Celeste suggests? Let's say you're able to get funded.
Right.
You know, as a business owner and somebody, a licensee, an awardee, you know, kind of what are some other things you can do to lift up the community as a result of getting that
Invest
license?
back into the community, something that these other dispensaries, medical, calling you out, operating as nonprofits, something that you guys should have done from the interim. Nobody has done any meaningful giving back to these disproportionately affected neighborhoods, investing. I'm not talking about giving away free tacos or free food or giving them free product that is product that you're creating. So, I mean, you're getting at it a fraction of the cost. No, I'm talking about doing true, meaningful investment back into these neighborhoods. Who's built a community center? Who's gave back to any of these schools? Who's put back any scholarships for any of these different disproportionately affected neighborhoods? Mm-hmm. I mean, the ACLU study that they did in 2019 showed that 7%, you're 7 times higher if you are brown or black to be arrested on either possession or for moving marijuana. So if we're 7 times higher, black and brown people, to be punished for it, we need to be 7 times higher that you're investing into these neighborhoods and giving back, because they're going to jail and you're ending up in the skybox. So most definitely investing back into the neighborhoods is not just employing, it's investing back into the neighborhoods.
Especially when it's our dollar. I mean, you know, minorities, especially black people, we spend the most money out of any ethnic group in this country. We spend $1.5 trillion a year. So most of this money that these MSOs have, it comes from us. So, I mean, you could at least give a little bit back, like you said. I mean, into the schools, community centers, that type of thing. I mean, they don't do anything.
What do you think?
I would follow that up by saying, yeah, they definitely need to start doing more and giving back to the communities, the schools. I mean, they are supposed to be nonprofits, right?
Let's not focus too much on the not existing ones.
Okay.
But you're the kind
saying,
of,
yeah.
if you get the license, what are some other ways to kind of lift the communities up?
I would say definitely put it as close to that community as possible. Because one of the things that have been statistically showed that a dispensary close to a neighborhood increases all property value. It's complete opposite of what people have been trying to tell people. All the numbers show it. Because why? Because in that area, dispensary, if you go to a dispensary, how many cameras do you see? The number of cameras you see, there's 10 times more. So within a mile radius of that dispensary, everything is watched, tracked, so that becomes a safer neighborhood for everybody. So that's one of the key things. Don't get your dispensary and put it in whatever. No, put it as close to where you grew up, you know, may not live there no more, but where you grew up as possible, and revitalize that neighborhood.
I'm going to ask one question, but it's going to be a total pivot. And then I'll ask each of you to what one piece of advice, although I think I know what that one piece of advice is going to be. What would you tell somebody who's new to the space about learning about marijuana itself, the plant, the science behind it, how it functions? Like, how important is it for somebody, particularly a licensee who might be new, to go and actually learn the subject matter information?
I think it's highly important. I mean, you don't want to sell any type of product that you don't know anything about. So I think that you should learn as much as you possibly can about it. And that also goes back to what I was saying about cultivation. If you were to get into the cultivating world and have a cultivation site, you are going to learn every single thing about it, from the seed to when it's actually a smokable or usable product. So if you don't know much about marijuana, you should be researching right now. And to be truthful, I would also say try it. And try it more than once. And not just for recreational, but I mean, literally, you know, research on what it does. I mean, this world that we live in, we all take these pharmaceutical pills. We're all taking literally heroin and cocaine, narcotics. And they're telling you that that's better than marijuana, a naturally growing weed, I should say, you know?
Yeah.
Just try it. Try it and do as much research as you can, because you don't want to sell any type of product that you don't know about. Point blank, period. You know?
I would say the same thing to feed off that. I mean, if you don't know anything about the marijuana product, then how can you even begin to start a business or grow a business? So you want to know what the elements are, what the goods are, what the bads are, what the cost is going to be. That's all part of a business plan. So you most definitely want to do your research to know everything that you can know about marijuana, because that is your focal point for your business. So if you don't know about marijuana, then how do you expect to actually grow successfully?
Yep. Yeah, and to follow that up, yeah, you want to know what you're selling. Like, if you're selling cars, you want to know the ins and outs of every piece that goes into that car to give you the best ability to sell that product. If you're going to go in with the mindset of, oh, it's just flour, it's going to move itself, it doesn't work that way. That's been tried before, and there's models that people could show you of these companies that have failed because they thought it was that. They thought they could just say, oh, hey, look, there's mold on it. No, don't worry about that. You still want it, right? No, it doesn't work that way. It's a product, there's consumers, and there's rules you have to follow. So yeah, you definitely want to know about the plant, because, and the thing about it, you'll never be able to learn everything. It's continuous education forever. Just like science. Science never stops, so the understanding of this plant never stops. There's over 150 cannabinoids that they've discovered, because the thing is, there's so many other cannabinoids in there and they only appear on a molecular level. We have to apply higher levels of science to them to discover them, and they haven't done that yet. Well, they've done it in some senses, but they'll tell you that there's no studies done on cannabis, but I've had studies from the 60s where every element they went through and did the research on it. So it's just, the research is out there. You have to do the research, understand what the benefits are, because the benefits of it are amazing. And the thing about it is, the benefits from this plant are not for everybody. And that, yeah.
Okay, so try it medically and recreationally.
Yes.
But you got to do your research. If you don't do your research, you'll never be able to grow. And this is still a new industry, even though it's been around for almost 10 years now. It's still a growing industry and still considered new, because it's only 10 years in here in Arizona. So most definitely do your research, do your research, do your research. That's with anything to grow on.
So we have just a few more minutes. We talked yesterday about what one piece of advice you would give to a social equity applicant. And I know this has been a lot of different pieces of advice, but as you're reflecting back on this conversation, your experience in the industry, your experience supporting people in the industry, what is that piece of advice beyond kind of what we've discussed, or maybe summing up exactly what we've discussed?
Me personally, and it's going to kind of reiterate what I already said, but like, again, hold on to your dispensary, and when you're fundraising, raise enough to also start a cultivation site. You need to have your own product. That's the only way that you're gonna stand on your own 2 feet. If not, you're always depending on someone. I mean, you can have a dispensary, but if you have no product in it, you don't have nothing. You just have a store with nothing in there, So the biggest thing is cultivation. A lot of these people just focus on the retail section, and that's not it. You have to be able to fill up your shelves with your own product.
Would you be willing to share, if we have a social equity applicant who's watching this and they win, would you be willing to share your financial, not your personal financial, but the kind of profit margin difference between if you're buying from somebody wholesale versus if you're...
Okay, so basically there's 3 levels of marijuana. You have indoor product, which is your best of the best. You have a greenhouse product, and then you have an outdoor product. Right now, the indoor product, roughly is going for $3,000. All right, so you may buy it from a cultivation site for $3,000. You're gonna put it into your dispensary. You're probably gonna sell $15 grams, which means, after it's all said and done and after taxes, that pound made about $6,000. And that's gross. But netted, you probably netted about $2,000 off of that pound. But when you grow it yourself, it costs you $600 to grow that pound. And then you broke it down, and gross wise was $6,000, but now your net is $5,000. There's a big difference.
And this is why you need good resources in the space to reach out to when you're doing that math or you're making those decisions.
Right. But
Celeste,
Business plan.
yeah.
Hold on to the license. Don't take no as a failure, because you're going to hear people tell you no, they're not interested, they don't want a partner, or whatever the case is. Don't never take it personal. Be able to differentiate business and personal. You don't need to see these people no more after that. Know your worth, know your value, and know that you want to make the most out of what you're going to do with this license. So know if you get awarded a license, you get awarded a license for retail. You can also have a cultivation, you can have an infusion kitchen, and then you get your lab where you get to do extractions. So those are 4 different streams that you can make off of one license. And if you attach your cultivation to your license, now you get a whole additional license. So now you have 5 different streams. Make sure you do your work and take advantage of all those 5 streams. It's piggybacking what he said. Otherwise, all you'll ever do is sell retail, where you'll only make 50% margin on anything you make, because that's the markup what's in the industry right now. So make sure that you do your work, do your due diligence, know your value, and hold on to that license. And we're always here to help anybody that has any different programs. The good thing with the state, they're going to make sure that they have different things that are going on for the future. So just ask for help, reach out for help. And don't reach out for help for people that don't have your best interest at heart. Otherwise, you made a loss.
I would have to say, keep it simple. Commit yourself to not doing anything with your license for a year minimum. And when I say that, spend that time doing your research, doing all your studying, meeting people, all your due diligence, what will get you to that point of having those 5 streams. Because if you think, like he said earlier, you're gonna just, oh, I got this license, man, by the end of the month, I'm gonna have a dispensary, no, it don't work. It don't work that way with places that have a lot of money. So keep things in perspective and know you're gonna be doing a year or so or more of hard research for all these different aspects to be successful in the cannabis industry, because it's not easy. And with any industry, good business is not easy. But when you have it, you establish it, and it's oiled, it runs. And after it's running, you sit back and you relax. But yes, nothing for a year, do your research, network, meet people, and then after that, then you'll have a better understanding of what you really got in your pocket, what you got in your bank, in your safe account box, hidden, buried under the ground, wherever you put it at. But you have to understand what that value is, and that's gonna take some time before you just do something. Because the first time you get it, somebody will be like, oh yeah, do this deal, and you do it, you're gonna regret it for the rest of your life. So take that time, take real time, and that's 6 months to a year to 2 years to put all this together.
Because any business that you are, not even just the cannabis industry, but businesses in general, when you're a startup company, you take losses in the first 6 months. If not losses, you're breaking even. So don't let the marijuana industry fool you, where you come in and you're an instant millionaire. That's not really how it works. Even with the multi-state operators that come in and want to buy your license from you, they're not going to come in and give you the value or the worth of your license.
For sure.
Well, go ahead, Tyrese.
Oh no, I was just saying the same thing they're talking about with the 6 months. It's the same thing with the cultivation. Even though I'm telling you to, definitely put focus on cultivation, even when you get it all the way set up and built out, that could take a year to find the exact place and get the permits that you need and to actually build it out. It may take a year before that's even ready. And then it's still gonna take you another 6 months to get a sellable product. So it's not a quick process at all, but what we're trying to tell you right now is hold on to it, do your research, and I promise you, in years to come, you, your family, your friends will all be just fine.
It's a heavily regulated industry. It's black and white. The rules are there. You stay out of the gray area.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming, for being a resource for this, sitting and talking with me. We appreciate your time and your contribution, your energy.
We thank you too.
Likewise.
We thank
Thank
you
you.
too, because we know it wasn't easy for you to put this on. So we thank the state for actually putting together a program that's going to actually benefit the community, because that's what we're looking for, is to benefit the community. Let's make sure we keep these last 26 licenses social equity licenses.